Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining me. In today's video we will be talking about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial, and I'm going to be covering what happened in court on Tuesday 24th of May. But before we get started, I don't have a word for you today because I don't have any inspiration right now. So please let me know what word or phrase you want me to translate next. Put it down in the comment section below. Okay, and I'll translate it in my next video. Before we get started, just a quick disclaimer: I don't mean any disrespect to anyone I talk about in the video. This is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and all the information I'm giving you is already found out there in the public domain, and I'll also share my views and opinions on it. Okay, let's crack on because I'm in a rush because I want to catch the today's trial as well before I go for my training. Okay, never mind. Rambling again, yeah. So on Tuesday we've had Johnny Depp's lawyers who are trying to dismiss the countersuit for Amber against Johnny Depp. They were trying to get it dismissed, but unfortunately the judge said that she thinks there is enough evidence to leave the decision for the fact finder, which is the jury. So the motion to dismiss was denied, and then also Amber Heard's side rested their case. Mind you, I think they didn't really have any other choice because they were left with 5 hours. So I'm guessing that they were reserving those 5 hours for cross-examinations of other witnesses rather than them bringing more witnesses to waste the time, right? So we are stopping, so we are not going to be seeing any more witnesses on Amber Heard's side. We are only going to be seeing witnesses from Johnny Depp's side. And the witnesses on Tuesday, one of them was Hamada from Warner Bros. Now he is, I think he's the director. I'll put it on the screen. I need to look into it. I forget. Okay, I have, yes, cognitive problems, like Dr. Spiegel likes to say. Yeah. Okay, so Hamada was saying that Amber, she actually had a contract for Aquaman 2 in the character of Mira, and it was Warner Bros. Who contracted her, and she was never released from the Aquaman contract. Even though we had Catherine, if you remember Catherine, she said that the Waldman statements were detrimental to Amber's career, and she should have seen an increase in negotiation deals and in endorsement deals and in all these kind of things. So basically she was financially affected by the Waldman statements, and also her career was affected because she was a star on the rise, but because of the statements, defamatory statements, you know, she doesn't have the same career path now. So Hamada was brought in as a rebuttal witness for Johnny Depp's side, right? So he is a rebuttal witness, and he's not going to be the only one. So this witness is basically trying to discredit everything that Catherine was saying in yesterday's testimony on the stand, when I mentioned the realm of probabilities and forecasting without actually having any kind of information, any kind of evidence, any kind of supporting documents, if you will, right? So now we know from Hamada that Amber, she already had a contract for Aquaman 2, and her role, and there was also no pay increase for her role because the payments are agreed when they signed the first contract. So again, contrary to what Catherine was saying, that Amber Heard could have renegotiated her salary in the Aquaman 2. And again, Catherine also said that according to Amber, her script was changed and a lot of her screen time was taken off of the script. So we know from Hamada, who works for Warner Bros., who contracted Amber, that her role was determined in 2018 from the beginning, before they started filming, and her role was never changed. So again, this goes against what Catherine was saying, that her role was changed because the script was changed, her screen time was cut off, and so on and so forth. Contrary again to what Catherine is saying, Amber Heard was not meant to be co-lead or co-star. She was just the romantic female character of Jason Momoa in the movie. So Amber was also paid for Aquaman 2 already. She was also paid. So this was not affected. Her financial things were not affected by Johnny or by the Waldman statements in the Daily Mail tabloid, because we will see later on throughout the day, according to another witness who is a lawyer, these contracts are determined and they are agreed before any filming starts, and including the payment that the actor receives. So she was paid for Aquaman 2, and on top of that, nothing that was around Johnny and the negative publicity around their divorce or around the trial or around the lawsuit, and nothing that was around the Waldman statements impacted her in any way within Warner Bros. There was a request of the producer of Aquaman made, and the delay for casting her in Aquaman 2, according to Hamada, is that the casting was delayed for a few weeks because there were discussions of recasting her role, Myra. So this was at the request of the producer of Aquaman. And again, going to the lawyer who spoke at more length about how the contracts work, if Amber Heard was on an options contract, then the company is at the discretion of the company. The company has the option to exercise or not exercise that option, which means that according to her contract, the company had the option to recast if they wanted to do so, but they haven't done it. They were looking to do it because there were problems of chemistry, romantic chemistry between Jason Momoa and her in their characters. So because they were portraying a romantic relationship, it kind of needs to be, you know, chemistry on the set between the two actors. So that was the reason why the producer was looking to perhaps recasting the role, because there was lack of chemistry between them two. And Amber Heard's role in Aquaman was in no way affected by any of the allegations, and her salary couldn't have been increased or renegotiated because of the legal contract that was signed. So again, contrary to what Catherine was saying, and again I'm saying that she based this on probabilities without any supporting documentation and without any evidence. She just went by what she thought as an expert, apparently. And we also know that we also know from Catherine and Amber Heard as well. She's been saying as well that her script was changed, so her screen time was reduced to only 10 minutes of screen time in the latest script. And this was because of all the allegations and the lawsuits and the negative publicity around her. And obviously that Hamada, he was asked about this, and he said that he personally reviewed the drafts for Aquaman 2 as soon as the scripts were released in 2018. So if the scripts were released in 2018 and he reviewed the drafts for the script, it couldn't have been modified after this trial started and with all the negative publicity. So again, this kind of, from my point of view, this discredits what Catherine was saying when she was on the stand.
Was Miss Heard cast in Aquaman?
Yes, she was.
Was Miss Heard cast in Aquaman 2?
Yes, she was.
Was Miss Heard paid for her services in Aquaman 1?
Yes.
Was Miss Heard paid for her services in Aquaman 2?
Yes.
Was her compensation for Aquaman 2 affected in any way by anything said by Johnny Depp?
No.
Was her compensation for Aquaman 2 affected by anything said by Adam Waldman?
No.
Was her compensation for Aquaman 2 affected by anything said by anybody representing Johnny Depp?
No.
Was there any delay in Warner Brothers exercising the option to cast Miss Heard in Aquaman 2?
Yes, there was.
How long a delay was there?
I don't know, probably weeks.
What was the cause of the delay?
There were conversations about potentially recasting.
Who was the producer?
Peter Safran,
Who was the director?
James Wan.
Did Warner Brothers believe that those concerns were legitimate?
Yeah, I mean, I had no reason not to believe the director and the producer of the movie.
And you are testifying today as a representative of Warner, correct?
Yes, I am.
What, if any, creative concerns did Warner Brothers have about casting Amber Heard as Mira in Aquaman 2?
It was the concerns that were brought up at the wrap of the first movie, production of the first movie, which is the issue of chemistry. Did the two have chemistry? I think editorially they were able to make that relationship work in the first movie, but there was a concern that it took a lot of effort to get there. And would we be better off recasting, finding someone who had better, more natural chemistry with Jason Momoa and move forward that way?
Did Warner Brothers take any steps affirmatively to audition other actresses for the role of Mira in Aquaman 2?
No, we did not.
Other than the creative concerns and concerns about chemistry you testified about, was there any other reason Warner Brothers delayed in picking up Miss Heard's option for Aquaman 2?
No, it was all concerns about whether she was the right bit of casting for the movie.
What role, if any, did Miss Heard's dispute with Johnny Depp have in Warner Brothers' delay picking up Miss Heard's option for Aquaman 2?
There was none from our end.
Moving on to the next witness, we had Dr. Colbert on the stand, and he was as well a rebuttal witness for Johnny Depp's side, and he is a plastic enhancement surgeon, so plastic surgery, right? And he was the one who reconstructed Johnny Depp's finger. There were a couple of questions asked, and it was around the subject of Johnny being violent whilst he was in a cast after the reconstruction of his finger, after all the procedures done to repair the finger, basically. So he was asked the question if Johnny with his cast on, we know that his two fingers were in a cast, if Johnny with his cast on could have grabbed someone without using those two fingers which were in the cast. And he also said that Johnny Depp, he had a plaster splint, which meant that only these sides they were soft, but this part here and the bottom part here where the cast was on were quite hard. So he said, the surgeon said that whilst yes, Johnny could attempt to grab someone, it's not very, it is possible, but it's kind of not very likely, I mean, even if he would attempt to grab someone or grab something, it would still be very difficult probably, because he couldn't really make a fist. He also had a pin in his finger which was placed in the finger for a few weeks, and the surgeon treated Johnny for several months because he needed more procedures done. He needed to get a skin graft, he needed to get a lot of procedures done on his finger, and according to the surgeon, if indeed he was trying to create damage with a rail of clothing of Amber's, he could have potentially used his other hand to do it, but kind of like, you can't really use your hand. I think that, yeah, you can't really use your hand. The surgeon was also asked if Johnny Depp could hit someone with a cast on his fingers, to which the surgeon said that Johnny, even if he would try to hit someone with a cast on his fingers, this would create damage to the cast. And the surgeon, when he checked Johnny, he never saw any damage on Johnny's cast. Therefore, he didn't hit anyone. You remember that it was around the same time that Amber Heard alleges that Johnny Depp was hit her sister, and Johnny Depp hit Amber, and Whitney was trying to get in between them, and you know, Johnny was trying to push Whitney down the stairs. Amber was instantly thinking about Kate Moss. And so, yeah, that's what they are trying to bring forward, that it was impossible for Johnny to hit anyone because he had a cast on his fingers. And lastly, the surgeon was asked if Johnny would be able to make a fist with a cast on, like we all said, you know, and kind of speculated. And the surgeon confirmed that no, it would be impossible for Johnny to make a fist with a cast on his finger. Which to me shows that Johnny couldn't have punched Amber and couldn't have hit Amber's sister, as she said in the staircase incident, right?
Good morning, Dr. Culber.
Morning.
Could you please state your full name for the record?
David Allen Culber.
And what is your profession?
I'm a plastic and hand surgeon.
And how long have you been a plastic and hand surgeon?
Been in practice for 26 years.
Where do you currently work?
At Cedars-Sinai Medical Center.
How long have you worked there?
For the past 26 years.
Do you know the plaintiff in this action, Johnny Depp?
I do.
And how do you know Mr. Depp?
I had taken care of him when he had injured his hand.
When did Mr. Depp become your patient?
Sometime in March of 2015.
And what type of treatment did you provide to Mr. Depp?
He had a fracture of his finger with soft tissue loss. And so we reconstructed his finger.
When did you perform the first surgery on Mr. Depp's finger?
I believe it was around March 20th of 2015.
And what was involved in that surgery, just briefly?
Debriding the vitalized tissue, putting a hypothermic skin graft, restore some of the soft tissue loss that he had, and then also putting a pin in because he had a displaced distal phalanx fracture.
What was the state of Mr. Depp's hand immediately after that surgery?
It was injured and had soft tissue loss and a fracture of his distal phalanx.
And what type of cast was on Mr. Depp's hand after you performed that surgery?
It was a plaster splint.
And can you please describe to the jury what a plaster splint would look like?
So it's like a cast, but you don't want to put everything circumferential on it because of swelling after surgery. So I believe in Mr. Depp's case, it was like the two fingers. I think the third finger was the one that was operated on. So these two fingers, the third and fourth finger, are together. And it's a splint with plaster on the top and on the bottom that goes around the hand to protect it.
How mobile was Mr. Depp's hand when it was in that cast?
Well, he couldn't move his third and fourth fingers because of the bulkiness of the splint. Typically, post-operatively, it's a more bulkier splint right after the surgery. So it's not very, it gets in the way.
Could Mr. Depp grab someone with that cast on his hand?
He could attempt to grab someone. I don't know how successful he would be. He had his index finger free and his thumb free, but the other fingers were probably not being able to move.
How long was the pin in Mr. Depp's finger?
About 11 or 12 days.
And how was the pin removed?
It was removed under local anesthesia in my office.
How long did you ultimately treat Mr. Depp for his hand injury?
for several months.
And why was that?
It was a bad injury. It required a few more little office procedures to clean up the tissue. We had an infection as a result of the injury, so we had to be on antibiotics for some time until it finally completely healed.
Do you recall when the infection developed?
It was a few weeks after the surgery, and that's when I took out the pin.
When was the last time that you saw Mr. Depp?
Sometime in 2015. I don't recall when.
And when was the last time that you spoke to Mr. Depp?
The same, around 2015.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Kolber.
Then we had another witness on the stand. He is called Richard Marks, and he is an entertainment transactional lawyer. He's a rebuttal witness. He was already brought on the stand when he was during Johnny Depp's testimony. He was brought as well on the stand, and he's an entertainment transactional lawyer, and he's been doing this for decades. And again, he was brought in to give his opinions on what Catherine said in her testimony. And he is saying that even though Catherine calls herself an expert, she is really not an expert in deal making, right? So for her to say and speculate that these are the kind of deals that Amber would have got and the endorsements that she would have got is not part of her job, right? Because she's not an expert in deal making. So everything that Catherine said, basically, according to this transactional lawyer, is built only on speculation and nothing else, really, purely based on speculation. He also disagrees with the statements that she said that Amber Heard would be able to renegotiate her contract because, like I said previously when it was about Hamada, you just can't renegotiate a contract because it's not up for renegotiation, because the contract is done before the actors even get the part in the movie. So it's done because whatever producing company is doing the movie, they need to know the budget that you need for this movie. So they kind of make their finances before they even cast the actors. So they are splitting their budget accordingly, right? So of course that more or less this is what Richard Marks was saying. So again, we need to remember that he's a lawyer for decades and he's an entertainment transactional lawyer, and he is dealing precisely in contracts, right? And he is the one who went into further explanations how contracts work and the option contracts and how Warner Bros. This according to their contract, they did have the option to recast if they wanted to recast, right? And again, I still have a few witnesses to go through, but I want to point out that in comparison to Amber Heard's witnesses and expert witnesses, the witnesses that are brought back for rebuttal and new witnesses, their behavior on the stand is so much more different. They present themselves differently. They seem more professional. They look more professional. They conduct themselves more professionally on the stand. And they know what they are talking about. And you can see that they know what they are talking about. These are proper professionals. And I think that Johnny Depp's lawyers or Johnny Depp's side chose their witnesses very professionally and very well, if I might add. In comparison to Amber Heard's witnesses, no, not so much, because a lot of them were behaving unprofessionally on the stand. If you remember, the most recent one being Dr. Spiegel, the psychiatrist, which was just ridiculous, if I'm honest with you. And it kind of gives a contrast between the type of lawyers that Amber has and the type of lawyers that Johnny has. It kind of goes with the person, doesn't it? It's like your lawyer represents you and you are one with your lawyer, if you know what I mean, if you will. We are seeing Amber Heard's lawyers, we are seeing Amber Heard's witnesses, we are seeing Amber Heard, we are seeing Johnny Depp's lawyers, we are seeing Johnny Depp's witnesses, and we are seeing Johnny Depp. It's a huge contrast between them two, between the two sides, a huge one. And I'm just gonna base it on professionalism here, because I think we need to keep that into account. Professionalism and the way that you present yourself as a witness. And for me, that says it all, honestly.
What's the significance of the test part in a test option agreement?
The test significance is that an established actor usually wouldn't test. They'd be offered the role. Ms. Heard was in a group of actors that needed to be tested to see if the studio wanted to hire them, and then if they hired them, they would be locked up for potentially 4 movies at very lucrative increases, because after Aquaman 1, she gets to $1 million, Aquaman 2, she gets to $2 million, and Aquaman 3, you get to $4 million. These are unheard of bumps if you're going on a normal career and trying to increase your salary by increments.
In your experience, what is customary for negotiations of multi-picture deals?
Well, I think what happened in this case was customary for negotiation of multi-picture deals. And by that I mean that you assume success. The reason you go from the first Justice League movie where Ms. Heard played Mira the first time, the reason you more than double her salary is you assume success. So you've already built in the bonus that Ms. Arnold was referring to, a renegotiation, if you will, for the third movie. Instead of doubling her salary, Ms. Arnold said it would only be fair to quadruple her salary. And that's just not the way these idiosyncratic contracts work. They're a very small portion of the contracts we deal with.
Are you familiar with Ms. Arnold's opinion that Ms. Heard's salary for Aquaman 2 could have been renegotiated to around $4 million?
I am.
Do you agree with that opinion?
No.
Why not?
Well, as I've said, that would now be, after a healthy first payday, it's more than doubled, and now it would be quadrupled. That's not the way it happens. Walter Hamada, who is the president of that part of the studio, said it doesn't happen. They're not going to do it. Miss Arnold, for some substance, says, well, Jason Momoa got to do it, but she doesn't give us any of the details. We know that Jason Momoa was in a movie before the Justice League. He played Aquaman in a movie not with Miss Mira in that movie. So he had a history before the first movie with Amber Heard. He played Aquaman. We don't know what his contract, the state of it was when you got to Aquaman 2, and she says, unsupported, that he renegotiated. We're not sure what he renegotiated to. But I can say that at the end of the option period, when you've only got one option left, and you want that star in more movies, you may renegotiate, but it's not a gratuity. It's, we'll give you more for the last option if you'll give us 3 more options. It's a give and take. And unfortunately, Ms. Arnold didn't give us any of that background or those building blocks. And then I think yesterday she said, and the other actors renegotiated. And again, we don't know their salary history. We don't know their contracts. We don't know anything except she's asking you just to believe her as what I refer to as a professional expert.
Are you aware that Ms. Arnold's opined that but for the alleged defamatory statements by Mr. Waldman, Ms. Heard would have earned $45 million in the last 18 months and then the next 3 to 5 years?
Yes, I am.
I'd like to address some of the components of that one by one with you, Mr. Marks. Are you familiar with her testimony that Ms. Heard would continue to make films for approximately $4 million each following Aquaman 2?
Yes.
Do you agree with that testimony?
No.
Why not?
Well, again, in Aquaman 2, Amber Heard has already had this huge increase. She worked on Aquaman 2 for $2 million. What Ms. Arnold is saying is, oh, she should have worked on it for $4 million, which I disagree with, and I think there is reasons to negotiate. They weren't here in this case. So the $4 million I have a disagreement with. But even if it was at $4 million, or if it was at $2 million, the 4 or 5 movies that Ms. Heard might get might be independent movies. They might be standalone studio movies. They might be passion projects. Every actor has a quiver full of quotes, and their highest quote is for the superhero fantasy journey. Their lowest quote might be for the independent passion project, where they'll defer their salary and almost take nothing to work, just SAG minimum, to assume that she'd get 4 or 5 more movies at her last fantasy quote would be to assume that those are also those type of movies, playing another character. And Ms. Arnold says that Ms. Heard's breakout moment, her Star is Born moment, is Christmas 2018. If that's true, and I don't think it's true, those moments don't normally happen to supporting cast, but if it's true, as a deal maker, you would expect, if you represented producers, production companies, to flock in, to take advantage of this hot star and to sign them up. And we have, from Christmas 2018 to spring 20, where there is none of this activity. The Star is Born phenomena didn't happen. Ms. Heard starred in one series of 8 episodes, and she earned a healthy fee, $200,000 an episode. But that's 5 times less than the $1 million Ms. Arnold is tossing out, supposedly based on Jason Momoa's quote. She doesn't prove it or give us facts. And Jason Momoa is not a comparable actor. He's been in a series where they shot 78 episodes, 44 episodes, 21 episodes. He played Conan the Barbarian. He was in Game of Thrones. It's not a comparable.
So moving on, the next witness was Michael Spindler. So Michael Spindler, he is a forensic accountant, and he was also a rebuttal witness. He already testified, but he came back again to talk about what Catherine said. So he is a forensic accountant, and he said everything about Catherine's testimony that is not supported by anything whatsoever, and it's unreasonable because there is absolutely no evidence, there's absolutely no documentation, and what she is basing Amber Heard's future earnings and future career path is on comparable actors, like we've already talked about. So this is what she's using as a comparison, and these actors, they are nothing to make a comparison with Amber Heard, right? Because they have much more experience and they have much more exposure than Amber Heard has or had at the time of when she was in Aquaman and these kind of things. Now, the Spindler is also saying that, of course, Catherine, she didn't bring forward any calculations, she didn't bring forward any underlying support, any evidence, no documentation on what she actually based her opinion on, being that she is calling herself an expert. Now, Spindler, he actually looked at tax returns for Amber Heard's historical compensation so that he can work out any kind of future anticipated earnings, something that Catherine brought forward in her expert witness testimony, however didn't really bring anything to fruition, as in she didn't really give any kind of figures, right? So according to the accountant, to Spindler, between 2013 and 2019, Amber Heard, she made $10 million, right? In 2019, she made between $2.6 million and $3 million. And this just goes to show the years that Amber Heard, how much money Amber Heard earned after the Aquaman release, when Catherine alleges that the star was born, right? So her star was on the rise thanks to the Aquaman role that she had and all the money that she lost after. So again, we are going to the figures here, between $2.6 million and $3 million, and between 2013 and 2019, which is for 6 years, she made $10 million. So where did Catherine come from? Where did she come up with? How did Catherine come up with the figure of $40 million to $50 million? Because it just doesn't add up, does it? Then we also had Mr. Bania. Now Mr. Bania, he's an intellectual property valuer. He came as well as a rebuttal witness. He's already given testimony, and he came again for Catherine testimony on the stand to kind of, you know, give his opinion on what she said. So he is talking about Schnell and Catherine's opinions. Now, if you remember Schnell, even I don't remember Schnell because I can't remember names. I think that, oh yes, Schnell is the guy, Schnell is the statistical and forensic analyzer on social media networks. You remember the maths and the graphs and all those kind of things that I just got confused with. So basically Mr. Bania, he came to give his opinions on what Schnell said and also on what Catherine said. So Schnell, he was trying to kind of make a connection between those negative hashtags and Waldman's statements in the Daily Mail. But Schnell, he didn't really give any evidence whatsoever if there is any connection between the statements, Waldman's statements, and the hashtags that he talked about, right? As for Catherine, Catherine was using comparable actors such as Jason Momoa, Zendaya, and all these actors who already played in big movies, right? So they are already very well known, and they are not comparable with Amber Heard and with her career. And like I said in my other video, my previous video, like I said, they are just not comparable. And Mr. Bania is saying the same thing. They are just not comparable because they are more known that Amber Heard is, so there is nothing really to compare them with there. The most interesting thing about what Mr. Bania said, because again, I'm not a fan of statistics and figures and maths and anything to do with graphs, but what he said I found very, very interesting, because what he did, he actually compared the timing between tweets and the Waldman statements, right? And he found, pay attention to this, he found that 35% of tweets were made prior to the Waldman statements. 35% of tweets. And that was prior to the Waldman statements. And they were negative towards Amber Heard, right? And then only 2% of the tweets were during and after the Waldman statements. 35% to 2%, it's a huge difference, isn't it? From before the Waldman statements and after, and during and after the Waldman statements. And then from the 2%, he looked at the largest spike, and the largest spike, he also looked at the largest spike in terms of the analytics, the internet world analytics, and the largest spike in negative publicity, if you will, towards Amber Heard happened before the Waldman statements. It had nothing to do with the Waldman statements. Only 0.06% of the tweets were about the Waldman statements. 0.06%. 0.06%, which is not even 1%, right? So Catherine said in her testimony that the tweets were about the Waldman statements, but as we now know, that is not true, because most of the tweets were made before the Waldman statements. So, in my eyes, this just proves the countersuit claim is not valid, because it just goes to show that Amber Heard did not receive negative publicity because of the Waldman statement. She already had the negative publicity before the Waldman statements were made. How about the divorce? How about when when people were calling her that she was the aggressor in the relationship? How about her pooing all on the bed? How about the Amber Heard hashtag? How about the Me Poo hashtag? All these things, I think, from my honest point of view, kind of affected her negatively, and not the Waldman statements. So I'm really hoping that the jury sees what we already see.
Mr. Spindler, now you indicated that you had listened to Ms. Arnold and she testified on behalf of Ms. Heard relative to economic damages. Have you formed an opinion as to the testimony and opinion rendered by Ms. Arnold?
Yes, I have.
And what's that opinion?
It is not adequately supported and it is unreasonable.
There were multiple elements to that analysis, both damages that related to her film career and to endorsements. Have you analyzed both those issues?
Yes, I have.
What is your opinion of the claims that have been asserted relative to the film career and endorsements?
Okay, well, first of all, with respect to her damages calculation, there was no calculation per se. She initially looked at these comparable actors and seemed to use that as a basis for numbers. She didn't provide the underlying calculation. She didn't provide underlying support. And then it appeared as though in her testimony, she backed away a little bit from that, but she still suffers from the issues of not providing detailed calculations or support for where those numbers come from. And she still, to some extent, appears to be using some kind of comparable analysis.
All right. What is the type of analysis that you think is appropriate here?
Well, I think, and as you heard from the last witness, I think that something that is anchored in facts, taking a look at historical compensation as a basis for anticipating future compensation.
Had you looked at Ms. Heard's prior compensation?
Yes, I have. I've looked at tax returns that were provided for the period of 2013 through 2019.
Why do you want to use historical earnings?
Well, once again, you want an analysis that's anchored in fact. I don't believe that Ms. Arnold has done that in her analysis. So here we've got some actual data, we've got some historical compensation, and as the last witness mentioned, that often provides somewhat of a basis for future anticipated earnings. In addition, I believe that Ms. Arnold herself said that she had hoped to be able to look at a renegotiated salary for Aquaman 2 and then use that as a basis for future compensation, that being the new kind of base, if you will.
All right. Were there any years in particular that you focused on in your analysis as to Ms. Arnold's testimony?
In terms of the historical compensation?
Yes.
Well, for 2013 through 2019 in total, her compensation was around $10 million for all those years combined. In 2019, the last of those years, her compensation was somewhere between about $2.6 million and $3 million. Now, that's a good year. That's known as a clean year.
What do you mean by a clean year?
Well, for example, 2019, you had Aquaman was released in December of 2018, and that was a successful film. So in 2019, you've got the benefit of that kind of success, and you also don't have any potential impact from the alleged defamatory Waldman statements that occurred in April of 2020. So 2019 is clean of all that.
What did you understand Ms. Arnold's methodology to be?
Her methodology initially appeared to be based on these comparable actors that she had identified, and theoretically, the compensation that they earned, although she doesn't identify what that compensation is or provide any support for it or any calculations.
What is your opinion of that methodology from an accounting perspective?
That methodology was unsound. It's just unsupported. There are no numbers, there's no data that she provided as support for that.
What methodology did you understand Ms. Arnold to adopt at trial?
Okay, well, it looked like somewhat of a mix and match approach. She used different approaches, I believe, for different elements of the damages, although it's still a little bit unclear to me, a little bit vague. But there are 4 basic components that she was looking at, and we can go through those in any order you wish.
The earnings from television shows. Did you analyze what historical earning Ms. Heard had during the period that you were concerned with relative to television shows?
Well, yes. During 2019, she entered into a contract in July of 2019 to appear in a television series at $200,000 per episode.
All right. What about endorsement deals? Did you look at what she had made on endorsement deals during that period?
She did have a contract with L'Oreal at $1,625,000.
With respect to her movie roles, what were her historical earnings during that period?
Well, certainly for the most recent years, you had the Warner Brothers deal, which was a 4-picture deal. The first film was $450,000. Then the first Aquaman was $1 million base fee. Then $2 million for Aquaman 2, and presuming that there was an Aquaman 3, that would have been $4 million.
Okay. Why do you look at historical earnings as part of your analysis?
Because you want your analysis to be anchored in facts. You want it to have a sound methodology, and you want to come up with a reasonable result. So if you take a look at, for example, the analysis that Ms. Arnold did, it didn't appear to be...
Let's just look at the analysis that you're doing. What you said, I think, is you wanted them anchored in facts. Why?
Because that provides a sound basis for coming up with something with reasonable certainty. There's AICPA, or American Institute of Certified Public Accountant guidance with respect to reasonable certainty. And those are the basic elements of it.
Thank you. No further questions.
All right.
And again, Mr. Schnell, when he spoke about the tweets and the negative tweets towards Amber, he actually never gave any evidence that the tweets were even related to Waldman's statement, and he also never gave any supporting evidence that there was an economic impact on Amber Heard because of the Waldman statements. And the reason why Mr. Bania was brought back as a rebuttal witness was mainly because Miss Catherine Arnold, she said that it's important to understand the public perception of Amber Heard and also Johnny Depp, and looking at social media. And so because Mr. Bania specializes in this kind of things, he actually looked at what she said that we should look at. And he looked at the public perception, and he looked at social media as well. And according to him, Amber was not seen in a positive light even after the Aquaman was premiered, even after the Aquaman was released, before the Waldman statement. So she was not seen positively in the public's eye. And also, so she was not comparable with all the other actors, Jason Momoa, Zendaya, and all these kind of things. So it was very interesting because Mr. Bania, he actually brought in all these graphs and all these statistics, and he showed a comparison between Amber Heard and all the comparable actors that Miss Arnold, Catherine Arnold, alleged are comparable to Amber Heard. And it was proven from my point of view that there is absolutely no comparison. It was also proven from my point of view that the Waldman statements did not affect Amber Heard's negative publicity and didn't have an economic impact on her or on her career. Therefore, the Waldman statements, from my point of view, the way I'm seeing the connections, were not defamatory to Amber Heard. And also, we don't know if Johnny Depp instructed Waldman to put those statements out. According to Waldman, that's not the case here.
Mr. Bania, before lunch we were talking about your opinions in response to the testimony of Mr. Schnell. Did you also analyze the testimony of Ms. Arnold in this case?
Yes, I did.
And are you aware of her opinion that Ms. Heard's career would have followed the same trajectory as that of Jason Momoa, Gal Gadot, Zendaya, Ana de Armas, and Chris Pine, if not for the Waldman statements?
Yes.
What's your understanding of Ms. Arnold's basis for her opinion that Ms. Heard's career should have been similar to that of those identified actors?
Ms. Arnold stated that when producers or her industry is looking to hire talent and actors, that it's important to best understand the public's perception of the actors that they're considering, and that it's important to look into social media to see what is happening with the actors they're considering for either a movie or even an endorsement opportunity with companies. So that was her approach.
And is that the process she followed in providing her analysis of those purportedly comparable actors?
No. Although she stated that, she went in and brought in these alleged comparable actors, and without really reasoning behind that.
Did you conduct an analysis based on your expertise in social media and internet analytics of Ms. Heard compared to the actors to whom Ms. Arnold compares her?
I did.
And what did you find?
Well, since Ms. Arnold stated that the proper approach is looking at the public perspective, looking into social media, and she did not do that, I felt that was the best approach to do this based on her words. So yes, I did go into best understanding the public perspective of Ms. Heard and the alleged comparable actors using Q scores. And then I also went and did some analysis online and on social media as well.
Can you briefly remind the jury what Q scores are?
Yeah, again, Q scores measure how well a celebrity, it could be a cartoon character, it could be a sports person, how well they're known, how well they're liked, and how much they're disliked. And it's an industry standard tool that's used. It's not just focused on the movies that they're in, but it's focused on them as actors, but also what's happening in their personal lives come to play as well. So that's how Q scores are typically used.
Did you prepare a demonstrative that reflects the Q score analysis you completed?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Mr. Banya, what point in time do these Q scores represent that are reflected on your demonstrative?
So these are the winter 2019 Q scores that are reflected here. And what was important for me is I wanted to find Q scores that represented Miss Heard after Aquaman. And remember, Aquaman, December of 2018. These Q scores were gathered January and February of 19, but before the Waldman statements.
And what did you find based on the Q
scores? And the higher the number, the better. As you can see, Ms. Gadot has the highest Q score out of the group of actors here at a 28. But you're going to notice Miss Heard has the lowest positive Q score. She has a 9. So I find that very interesting that she doesn't appear to fit in as a comparable with these alleged comparable actors. I think what's also interesting is the average Q score for all actors being scored at that time, which include all the alleged comparable actors here, score at an average of 17. And you can see, again, she is 9, well below that. And then on the right side, you're going to see the negative Q scores. So this is how much people dislike you. So the lower the score is better. You can see Mr. Momoa is over here with the lowest at an 8. But you can see Miss Heard is over here at a 28, which was quite a difference. A 20-point difference from Mr. Momoa, and also a 10-point difference, from the average of all actors. So she is very, very much her positive score is very low, and her negative score is very high, which tells me that she does not fit in as a comparable as it relates to these alleged comparable actors.
What opinions did you form based on that Q score analysis?
My opinions as it relates to these Q scores is, Miss Arnold used these actors as allegedly comparable actors, but really listening to her testimony yesterday, it appears that she's abandoned this approach. I don't think she's using these comparable actors or these alleged comparable actors anymore. She's more relying on her experience, and I agree with that.
Did Ms. Arnold offer a criticism of your use of the Q scores here?
She did, yes.
And what's your understanding of what that criticism is?
Well, what I believe she was saying is that I should have ran Q scores for these allegedly comparable actors after each of their breakout films, which I disagree. First of all, Q scores doesn't work like that. Q scores are available twice a year, so it's not that I could pick a month or a different month for each of the Q score actors. So I feel that, what was important for me, and this doesn't always happen when I'm using Q scores, you can get this perfect moment in time, as Miss Heard said, as Miss Arnold said, that, Aquaman was Miss Heard's breakout moment. So these scores reflect that breakout moment, and they're terrible Q scores.
How would your analysis change if you had used Ms. Arnold's logic with respect to the timing of the Q scores that you looked at?
I mean, if you really think about what Ms. Arnold was saying, is she's saying that she thinks Q scores are the highest for each actor right after their breakout moment. So I would think, if anything, these Q scores could have been a bit lower, because it's not right after their breakout moment. But what's important for me is the fact that these scores reflect, who Amber Heard was at the time before the Waldman statements, but after the Aquaman release.
We can take that one down, Tom. Thank you. What other work have you done in connection with forming your opinions in this case?
Again, taking the advice from Ms. Arnold, it's important. She says the industry looks into social media, what their followings are like, with the numbers as it relates to their followers. Again, what is the public perception of them? So I analyzed their social media accounts, but prior to the Waldman statement. So.
And how did you do that?
Yeah, so what I did, I don't know if you're all familiar with the archive.org. They have a tool called the Wayback Machine. What archive.org does is it archives the internet. So you can go back in time to see what websites and web pages used to look like in the past. Not all the time can you actually get a celebrity's social media accounts to have been archived, but We were fortunate that each of the alleged comparable actors' social media accounts were in archive.org, so I was able to go back in time prior to the Waldman statements to see what the following activity was for each of the alleged comparable actors.
Mr. Banya, did you prepare a demonstrative that reflects your social media analysis?
Yes.
Banya, could you tell the jury what you found when you looked at the social media?
Yeah, so what I found, again, this is prior to the Waldman statements. First thing you're going to notice here is not all actors use social media. You're going to see Mr. Pine doesn't have Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, and Momoa and DeArmas don't use Facebook or Twitter. But what's important to look at is you have Ms. Heard prior to the Waldman statements with 3.8 Instagram followers and 142,500 Twitter followers, and then you move down to Gal Gadot with 37 million Instagram followers compared to her 3.8 million, and the 2.3 million Twitter followers compared to Ms. Heard's 142,000, and you can then even go down to Zendaya with 65.9 million and 17.2 million Twitter followers. What this is telling me is really, more people are interested in Ms. Gadot and Zendaya and even Mr. Momoa than Ms. Heard on social media. It just tells me a lot of people are interested in these actors as opposed to Ms. Heard, more of a following. Q scores, well-liked, less disliked. So it kind of fits into the analysis of determining whether or not these alleged comparable actors are actually comparable.
Based on your expertise, what are your overall opinions about Ms. Arnold's analysis of the so-called comparable actors?
Yes, again, it appears that she's abandoned this approach, and I agree with that. I feel that, through the Q-score analysis and the social media analysis, that they're just not comparable.
Tom, we can take that one down. Mr. Banya, based on all the analysis you did in this case, what are your overall opinions?
Yes, my overall opinions are that Mr. Schnell failed to prove any causal connection with the Waldman statements and the search or the hashtag activity, those spikes, as it relates to Twitter. There's no causal connection there. My second opinion is, based on my social media and Q-score analysis, Ms. Arnold's alleged comparable actors are not comparable. And then third, Ms. Arnold and Mr. Schnell both failed to prove any causation as it relates to the Waldman statements causing economic harm to Ms. Heard. So, as a damages expert, which Ms. Arnold is, you need to take into consideration causation before you can calculate damages. You look at damages and you look at this allegedly damaging event, and not only do you have to prove that 100% of the damages because of these Waldman statements, she didn't even consider COVID. It happened at the same time. A lot of actors probably made a lot less money because of COVID. Maybe films didn't get made. And, when you do an analysis of damages, you prove causation, but you also have to look at everything else that might have caused this alleged economic harm. And she didn't look into any of that. She didn't even know what causation was. So I don't think damages is an appropriate approach in this case.
For me, this witness, the rebuttal witness, the intellectual property valuer, Mr. Banya, kind of sealed the deal in terms of discrediting both Schnell and Catherine's testimony. We also had a witness who was not a rebuttal witness. He was a witness called by Johnny Depp's side. Is to do with the Hicksville incident. His name is Mr. Knight, and he was the owner of Taylor Palace, Hicksville. You remember the instance where Amber and Johnny and her friends went to the trailer park, to spend some time away there, like kind of in a secluded area. So basically this guy, Mr. Knight, he was the owner at the time of the trailer park, but he sold it since at the beginning of 2020. And he actually owned this trailer park for 10 years before selling it off. he was a live-in manager, and as a live-in manager he would spend a few nights at the site in the house that in a separate house where he would sleep in. And in late of May 2013 is the time when he met Amber and Johnny together, but at the time that they went there for vacation. According to Mr. Knight, Johnny was very excited to be going to that place, and he was really in a great mood. And he was just excited to be there and to see the studio, to see the trailer park, and to just relax. On the other hand, however, Amber, she was just very quiet, and she didn't really say much. And according to him, there were between 10 and 12 people in total at the trailer park with in Johnny and Amber's group. And although the trailer houses more than 20 people, the whole trailer park was rented by Johnny to kind of keep their privacy. Throughout the evening, after they got there, Johnny, he seemed to be enjoying his evening. He was really talking to Mr. Knight about books and music. And at one point, Amber, she kind of seemed annoyed that Johnny didn't really spend time with her. She wasn't really giving her that much attention. So we again are seeing that she is the one who strives constantly for attention, and she's the jealous one, and she just wants Johnny for herself, to give only her the attention. In total, Mr. Knight, he spent between 45 to 1 hour with the group, with Johnny and Amber mostly, rather than the whole group, but it was mostly actually with Johnny that he spent the time. And also Amber, she seemed to be having a really great time with her friends when they were sitting around the fire pit, and Mr. Knight was actually the one speaking with Johnny Depp most of the time. And then at some point in the middle of their conversation, Amber, she came over saying that she wanted to have a conversation with Johnny. So so they kind of went to a side and they had their conversation, and according to Mr. Knight, he witnessed Amber yelling and starting an argument with Johnny Depp. And Johnny's demeanor changed significantly when she started arguing with him and when she started yelling at him. And Johnny he seemed to be afraid of her, and he seemed to be cowering, kind of like not saying anything. And this reminded, and now although this was struck from the record, it's worth mentioning here that Mr. Knight, he said that he was himself a victim of DV previously, and he recognized the signs and he recognized the behavior of Amber. And he said that the way that Johnny Depp was behaving after Amber was yelling at him and screaming at him and having an argument with him was the same way that Mr. Knight was behaving when he was being in that DV relationship. So that's the reason why when Mr. Knight saw this argument, this yelling and argument and fighting between them two, he retreated to his house because it triggered him, and he instantly remembered about his own DV relationship. So that was very telling in my opinion, because like we all say, when you are a victim of DV, you kind of recognize when someone else is a victim of DV, and you kind of recognize when someone is the aggressor, because you've already personally been through these things. And although not every DV relationship is the same, there are a lot of things in common, and there are a lot of things that aggressors do regardless of the relationship, right? I think, yeah. Later on throughout the night, Mr. Knight, he went back outside, and that's when Johnny Depp found him, and he instantly apologized for what happened. And then Johnny, throughout the rest of the evening, he became more quiet. And as the night went on, Mr. Knight noticed that Johnny Depp being more quiet, he was also less sharp, so he seemed intoxicated. He seemed to show, the behavior of someone who is intoxicated. And again, this takes me back to me saying that I think by this point, if Johnny, and I truly believe that Johnny was a victim of DV, he found comfort in this alcohol and the substance use. It was the only thing that he found comfort in at this point as a victim. So you remember when Amber Heard was saying that there was an argument between Johnny Depp and one of her friends, saying that she grabbed her friend's arm and that she shouldn't touch Amber Heard because she's his wife and things like that. And then they went in the trailer and they had an argument, and Johnny created destruction in the trailer. You remember that, like what Amber was saying? So according to Mr. Knight, he said that at some point during the night he heard some commotion, and then everybody, you know, went to their trailers, to their respective trailers. Amber and Johnny went to their trailer, and that's how the night ended. In the morning, he was told by someone else who was working there that there was some damage to the trailer, right? So Mr. Knight, he went to inspect the trailer, and he was really sweet about it, Mr. Knight, if you will. He explained that the trailer was a vintage trailer, and he was trying to keep the things in the trailer kind of going with a vintage theme, right? So most of the things in the trailer, they were vintage, and they could be quite expensive to replace. So when he heard about the damage in the trailer, he was very concerned and very anxious, because he thought, oh my God, what did they do to the trailer? I don't know how many things I need to replace, and you know, this kind of things, that like thinking about the destruction. And then he went and he inspected the trailer, and guess what he found? Guess what he found? He found a wall sconce which was broken off, and it shattered, and there were pieces shattered on the floor. A wall sconce. And the total damage to the trailer was of $65. $65. A wall sconce. What did Amber say happened in the trailer? Didn't she say that he trashed the whole trailer? That the table was flipped upside down? That the things were broken and damaged and all these kind of things? Isn't that what she said? And she even said that the manager, who was Mr. Knight, went in the trailer and he had a mesh kind of shirt on. You remember when she said that? Talk about insignificant details which shouldn't even be brought up. Well, Mr. Knight was asked about his mesh shirt, and guess what? He said he never went in with a mesh shirt on. So he never had a mesh shirt on when he went in. And the whole damage to the trailer was $65, a wall sconce. Yes, a light fitting. That was the whole damage. So, what I took from this witness was, but of course that Amber side, they were trying to discredit him, but this witness to me seemed very, very genuine. He seemed very genuine. He actually seemed like a really, really sweet person, if I'm honest with you, and he seemed genuine. And Amber Heard side, they're trying to discredit him so hard, but from my point of view, in my eyes, they didn't accomplish that at all. They didn't. And he didn't really have anything to gain from it, if I'm honest with you. There was nothing to gain from it.
And yeah, everyone was in a pretty good mood.
Did there come a time in the evening that you observed Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard have a disagreement or an argument?
Yes. I was speaking with Mr. Depp, just one-on-one, talking about Hicksville, and Ms. Heard came over and she said that, I want to talk to you, and seemed really upset about something. So I went and back in the house, because it was really, they went off on their own, and she started yelling at him, and I didn't want to hear it. It honestly was really triggering, because I've been in an emotionally abusive relationship before.
Objections. Move to strike.
What's the objection?
You're up, or maybe reproach.
Okay, sure.
Mr. Knight, will you please just explain for us what you observed when you saw Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard having an argument?
Yes. So Ms. Heard asked him to go talk off to the side, and she was upset at him, and she was yelling at him. And I personally had been in
Objection.
All right, I'll sustain the objection.
Okay.
If you could just explain to the jury what you observed when you saw Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard having an argument.
Okay. He was kind of cowering and seemed almost afraid, and it was really like odd to see because he was older than her, obviously. So, but I just went back in the house because I didn't
Objection to what he did.
All right, I'll sustain as to.
Understood. So after you observed the argument, fair to say you went back to to your house on site?
Yes, I did, yeah.
Okay. What happened after that?
So when I saw Mr. Depp on my next rounds, he apologized profusely and said, "I'm really sorry about that." She was upset.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Sustain. Next question.
What, if any, type of reaction did Mr. Depp have?
He was just really...
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay. He's going to say it again.
It's the reaction, it's not the statement.
All right, if you could make that clear, that's fine.
Just what type of physical reaction did Mr. Depp have after the argument between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard?
He honestly, throughout the rest of the night, became a lot more quiet and was just very more petulant. In the beginning of the night, he was a lot more outgoing and extroverted, and throughout, as the course of the night went on, he was less and less so and more quiet.
Did you observe any of the guests consuming alcohol while on the property?
I assume they were. I mean, people had cups and there was alcohol set up in the bar trailer, but I didn't physically see them pour alcohol into their cup and cup go into the mouth per se.
Did you witness Mr. Depp drink any alcohol that evening?
I couldn't say.
Okay. Anything about Mr. Depp's demeanor that made you think he was perhaps intoxicated?
Yes, as the night went on, I am a former bar owner, so even though I wasn't drinking that night, I'm very familiar with the signs. So just as the night went on, like I said, he became more and more quiet, but he also, as we would have conversations, his head would kind of sway a little bit back and forth, which was a little, he was much less sharp than he was earlier in the night.
Did Ms. Heard appear intoxicated to you?
She did. She seemed, I think when she was angry at him, it seemed like she was intoxicated, but that's just based on my experience and my own personal trauma dealing with abuse.
Okay. Objection, Your Honor, move to strike.
All right, I'll sustain the objection. We'll strike it from the record. Please disregard that testimony.
Did you observe anyone do or take?
I did not.
Did you witness Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard interact other than the argument that you previously described for the jury?
At the end of the night, I heard a commotion. I was inside the house and came out. I couldn't tell what was going on. And Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard were having a discussion about I'm not sure what, but then they went to their trailer. At that point, a lot of people had already gone to bed. So it just kind of petered out. Everyone went to bed, including myself, and I didn't hear anything else the rest of the night.
What time did the evening come to an end?
I'd say it was almost around 3 a.m.
Did you ever see Mr. Depp grab anyone?
Objection, leading.
Sustained.
Did you ever see Mr. Depp become physical with anyone?
Objection, leading.
Sustained. Next question.
Did you ever witness Mr. Depp get angry that evening?
Objection, leading.
Sustained.
What, if anything, happened the next morning?
The next morning, we have checkout at noon at the time, before COVID. And so around 11 o'clock, one of my innkeepers let me know that there was some damage.
Objection, hearsay.
Did something happen that caused you to go to Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard's trailer?
Yes, I was informed that...
Objection, hearsay.
It's not being offered for the truth, Your Honor. I mean, may we approach on this
Okay,
topic?
sure.
Thank you. What, if anything, happened the next morning, Mr. Knight?
The innkeepers let me know that there was some damage in one of the trailers, and it happened to be Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard's trailer. So I wanted to inspect the trailer because I was extremely worried. All those trailers that Steve and I worked on were like my babies, and the one they were staying in was the only one that was mostly original and restored 1950s style, and so I was very concerned.
So what did you observe when you went to the trailer?
I observed that there was a light sconce by the bathroom in the bedroom that had been broken off the wall, and a couple pieces were on the floor, and they were, it was basically just broken. The light fixture was hanging on the wall still, except for the pieces that were on the floor.
Did you come to understand how that happened?
Objection, foundation, and
All right,
light.
foundation, I'll sustain as to foundation, how he knew.
Did you ask how the sconce was broken?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
How often do light fixtures in the trailers break?
They break pretty often. I mean, it's not like a usual thing, but things in the trailers generally get broken because it's all vintage trailers, and I would say as much as every couple weeks there's some incident of damage in one of the trailers. In this case, Mr. Depp had told me that.
Objection, hearsay.
Objection.
So anyway, yes.
Beyond the light fixture, was anything else in the trailer damaged?
No, everything else looked fine. In fact, we have something we call a piggy fee that we address to guests, that if there's anything what we call inconsiderate or unusually large messes, we charge them extra for it for a $25 an hour cleaning fee. But they did not receive one of those because everything outside of the light fixture looked fine.
And what was your reaction to seeing the damaged light fixture?
To be honest, I was relieved because it was not a big deal. There was already another light in the room, so I just tucked the wires in the wall until I had a few months later time to it was matching sconce with another one in the room. So I had to, on eBay, find a matching pair that would fit there, and when I finally got around to it, I was able to get that and charge it to Nathan, whose credit card I had.
And what was your understanding of who Nathan was?
Mr. Depp's assistant.
Okay. And what did you charge Nathan or Mr. Depp for replacing that pair of light fixtures?
The pair came out to $62.
While you were on site, Mr. Knight, did you ever wear a mesh shirt?
No, I would absolutely never wear that.
At any time during Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard's stay on the property, did you see Mr. Depp become physical with anyone?
Objection, leading.
Overruled. That's good.
I'm sorry, that answer was?
I never saw Mr. Depp get physical with anyone when I saw him.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Knight, you are a pretty big fan of Johnny Depp, aren't you?
I am not. To be honest, throughout the evening,
Sorry, I just asked you one question.
Oh, I
didn't ask you
apologize.
the rest of that.
I
You wanted
apologize.
to participate in this trial, didn't you?
I did not. I
You
was
knew-
asked by the attorney, and I wanted to.
So moving on to the last two witnesses, which is very interesting. We had Dr. Shaw as a witness in a deposition, and he was a rebuttal witness for Johnny Depp, giving his opinion on Dr. Spiegel's testimony. Yes, Dr. Spiegel. So Mr. Shaw, he is actually a psychiatrist, and he's been a psychiatrist, and he's moved over from the UK to the US. He specializes in family therapy, and he's also a professor of psychiatry, and he's also doing a lot of research in trauma and PTSD, and also in parents suffering from trauma because of their children who are going through trauma. According to Dr. Shaw, Dr. Spiegel violated the ethics code and the ethic rules when he gave his opinion on the cognitive problems that Johnny Depp had, and also on the personality traits such as the narcissistic behavior trait that Spiegel said Johnny had. And Dr. Spiegel's opinions, according to Dr. Shaw, were unreliable because he he didn't really give an evaluation of Johnny. He never interacted with Johnny. He never saw Johnny, you know, and also he shouldn't have made a diagnosis when he never examined Johnny. Now, if you remember, Dr. Curry, when she diagnosed Amber with BPD and HPD, she actually spent more than 12 hours with Amber. So she saw Amber personally. And Dr. Spiegel, with Amber Heard's lawyers, they were trying to point out that Johnny Depp refused to have an evaluation done by Dr. Spiegel, but that's not true, because it was the court who actually refused for Johnny Depp to have an evaluation done by Dr. Spiegel. It wasn't Johnny Depp who declined that. It was the court who actually declined the motion. So yeah, and also Spiegel broke the Goldwater rule when he gave his opinion on Johnny Depp and on the narcissistic personality traits, like I mentioned already, and on the cognitive ability. Now, there is a very interesting thing that Dr. Shaw said, which takes me back to Amber and how Amber is. So Dr. Shaw is describing narcissistic behavior traits, and he's saying that when a person has narcissistic behavior traits, there is a pattern in their behavior of grandiosity, right? There is a pattern of grandiosity. There is a constant need for attention. There is a lack of empathy. And also there is a lot of envy towards people who are doing well and they are not doing as well. But you need to make a difference, because envy can be confused, right? But envy in narcissistic personality traits is being envious of someone for having something which they want to have but they don't themselves, if you get what I mean. So this is a very interesting thing, because this to me rings Amber Heard and not Johnny Depp, if I'm honest with you. Again, emphasizing that Dr. Spiegel broke the ethics code because Johnny Depp did not give consent for Dr. Spiegel to make a diagnosis, and also Dr. Spiegel never did an evaluation like we just covered here. It was denied by the court, and Dr. Spiegel also didn't give any evidence whatsoever what he based his opinion on, including his cognitive issues, saying the 3 words, he didn't remember them after 5 minutes. There is an extensive testing that needs to be done for someone to come to a conclusion that another person has cognitive issues. So this is in a nutshell what Dr. Shaw said. And again, it discredits the Dr. Spiegel testimony, and I already said when I covered in my previous video that for me Dr. Spiegel lost his credibility entirely when he conducted himself so unprofessionally on the stand, and he also argued with the lawyer, which you just don't do. And in comparison, Dr. Shaw, you can see him how he's presenting himself and how professional he is. And again, it goes back to Amber Heard, Johnny Depp.
Dr. Shaw, is the Goldwater rule limited to diagnoses?
It's not. It's includes all professional opinions.
Do you agree with Dr. Spiegel that the Goldwater rule doesn't apply to expert witnesses?
I don't agree, no.
How could Dr. Spiegel express an opinion without violating the Goldwater rule?
This has actually been a topic that's been written and published about. So it is possible for someone to give testimony about a matter without interviewing someone. And there's certain sort of ways that it should be framed. So, for example, when Dr. Spiegel was testifying about the report that Mr. Depp was unable to recall these 3 objects, what he could have done is said that I have not personally examined Mr. Depp, so I can't speculate about his cognitive state or ability to function cognitively. However, it is possible that someone who's not able to recall 3 objects could have issues related to substance use, which was what his opinion was. However, what he should have done in expressing his opinion is then have followed up to say that in order to really establish whether these were relevant and significant cognitive deficits, Mr. Depp should have had psychological testing to establish the nature of these deficits. And he should also have added that there are other potential explanations for these findings. So, for example, it's possible that Mr. Depp...
Objection, Your Honor. He's now going past the designation.
I think he's just opining as to, or is responding to Dr. Spiegel's testimony yesterday.
No, he's opining as to what Dr. Spiegel could have said, but it's past the, whether he, about the
All right,
water.
if we can move on.
Okay. Who is qualified to give an opinion about cognitive deficits and processing speed?
It would have to be someone who could conduct the type of neuropsychological testing that I was mentioning. You can't establish the presence of cognitive deficits without a battery of tests.
Objection, again, this is beyond the cold water.
Overruled.
You can't establish cognitive deficits without appropriate neuropsychological testing. And that can only be done by a psychologist or neuropsychologist. So a psychiatrist like Dr. Spiegel would be giving an opinion outside of his area of expertise if he gave an opinion about cognitive deficits that required psychological testing to be further evaluated.
Dr. Spiegel yesterday testified about the practice of forensic psychiatry. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes, I do.
What is forensic psychiatry?
Forensic psychiatry is a specialty of psychiatry that relates to matters on the intersection between psychiatry and the law. So, for example, what we're doing today is forensic psychiatry, where a psychiatrist comes into court and gives an opinion about a matter to help the court come to an opinion.
Are there professional standards that govern the practice of forensic psychiatry?
Yes, there are.
And what organizations have issued those standards?
One of the primary organizations that has issued guidelines about the practice of forensic psychiatry is called the American Academy of Psychiatry and the Law. This is an organization that represents forensic psychiatrists. And it has published guidelines about what constitutes an ethical and sound practice of doing a forensic assessment and providing a psychiatric opinion. So this guideline, I think was published in 2015, actually contains many elements that are consistent with the Goldwater rule. So, for example, it states that for a forensic assessment to be done, there has to be informed consent, and there should be a very thorough, comprehensive evaluation that would include reviewing past records, past psychiatric history. It would include doing what's called a mental status examination, which is a careful evaluation of someone's mood, cognition, things of that nature. And the guidelines do state that it is reasonable or permitted to provide an opinion without an evaluation, but if you're going to do that, there's some things that you have to really make clear in your opinion when you express that opinion. And the first is that you have to acknowledge the limitations of your opinion and not, like Dr. Spiegel, say that his opinion was held with a degree of medical certainty. You have to explain what's missing, what data you did not have that you were not able to rely upon in coming to that opinion. You also have to talk about what additional information you would need to come to that opinion. And even though these guidelines say it's permissible to do this, the text is still, I think, not fully in support of psychiatrists doing this. So their statements are that opinions rendered without a proper database, which is what we as psychiatrists rely upon to make diagnoses and give opinions, professional opinions, is questionable and not generally recommended.
Did you form an opinion about Dr. Spiegel's testimony with respect to these practice guidelines?
Yes, I did.
And what is your opinion?
Well, my opinion is that he did not follow those guidelines. So, for example, he did not have consent. He did not do, when he gave his opinions, as I just mentioned, he said they were opinions that he had to a degree of medical certainty. And he did not make any statements about what other additional information he would have wanted to make that opinion. So, for example, when asked about should neuropsychological testing be performed, he said most patients don't have access to that, which is actually not at all true. I mean, every medical school has neuropsychologists that can do testing. So I think that was an unfortunate statement. So I think those are the primary ways in which the Goldwater Rule was violated, and the practice guidelines were not adhered to.
Dr. Shaw, yesterday Dr. Spiegel was talking about correlation and causation. What is the difference between correlation and causation?
Objections? It's not in this designation.
It is. We can approach and I can show you.
Okay. All right.
Go ahead, Dr. Shaw.
Yeah, so the difference between a correlation and causation, correlation is a statistical analysis of a relationship between two different factors. So in Dr. Spiegel's testimony, he talked about, there being a correlation between opinions he had about Mr. Depp, his narcissistic personality traits, his substance abuse, things of that nature. So a correlation doesn't say anything about whether or not these factors caused that, the behavior he was discussing. Perhaps one of the easiest ways I could describe this difference between correlation and causation is if we look at the issue of measles, if you'll bear with me. So there's a correlation between being young and catching measles. Now we know that measles is not caused by being young. Measles is caused by a virus. But young children have not been exposed to the virus. They don't have the immunity, so they have a higher rate of measles. So the difference statistically is, the difference is between causation and correlation is illustrated by that example. So another way I might put this is if we had 100 people in a room, just bringing it back to the issue of IPV that Dr. Spiegel was testifying about. Let's say we had 70 people who had all the risk factors for IPV and 30 people who had no risk factors for IPV. So what can we say about those 70 people? We can't say that any single one of those people has perpetrated IPV, even though they may have all the risk factors. And if we look at the 30 people who have no risk factors, we also can't say whether or not they have perpetrated IPV. So the actual presence of risk factors for IPV that Dr. Spiegel was talking about, they say absolutely nothing about what happened in this case.
Thank you, Dr. Shaw. Nothing further.
All right. Cross-examination.
Good afternoon, Dr. Shaw.
Good afternoon.
You're not offering any opinion as to Mr. Depp's psychology, correct?
That's correct.
And you testified a lot about the Goldwater Rule. You know of no case where an expert has been excluded from testifying based on the Goldwater Rule, correct?
I don't know about the whole universe of cases. It's possible, but I don't know personally about one.
And you, before this case, you've never offered an opinion on the Goldwater Rule before, correct?
That's correct.
And you've never written an article on the Goldwater Rule, correct?
I have not.
And you've never given a presentation on the Goldwater Rule, correct?
I have not.
And you've never been on any committees regarding the Goldwater Rule, correct?
I have not.
And you agree that you've testified that there are exceptions to the Goldwater Rule about having to interview the subject, right?
Yes.
And you understand that Dr. Spiegel requested to meet with Mr. Depp twice, but Mr. Depp declined, correct?
I'm aware of that.
And Dr. Spiegel stated in his designation and at trial yesterday that he did not meet with Mr. Depp, right?
Yes.
Okay. Can we put up Defendant's Exhibit 1904? Dr. Shaw, have you seen the opinions of the Ethics Committee on the Principles of Medical Ethics?
Yes.
Okay. And if you could turn to 79 of the PDF, it's actually, thank you. You see where it's highlighted here?
Yes.
And it says psychiatrists have also argued that the Goldwater rule is not sound because psychiatrists are sometimes asked to render
Objection,
opinions.
hearsay.
He's an expert. Without conducting an examination of an individual. Examples occur in particular in certain forensic cases and consultative roles. This objection attempts to subsume the rule with its exceptions. What this objection misses, however, is that the rendering of expertise and or an opinion in these contexts is permissible because there is a court authorization for the examination or an opinion without examination. And this work is conducted within an evaluative framework, including parameters for how and where the information may be used or disseminated. You see that?
I do, yes.
And this court authorized Dr. Spiegel to testify in this case, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
All right, redirect.
Dr. Shaw, Mr. Nadelhoff just asked you about the court authorization of Mr. Depp's evaluation. Are you aware that the court has twice denied Ms. Heard's request for an evaluation of Mr. Depp?
I heard that yesterday in testimony, yes.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further.
The last witness of the day, and I was kind of looking forward to it, and I was a bit disappointed when I've seen that there was not much touched on that subject, was Jennifer Howell. Now you remember Jennifer Howell, she was the employer of Whitney Henriquez when Whitney went to live with her, and also Whitney told her that she was scared for Johnny's life, and because of the way that Amber is violent towards Johnny. You remember that, what she said? So she was in a deposition, Jennifer Howell, yesterday, and she's still the CEO of the Art of Elysium, which was the same company that employed Whitney Henriquez at the time. And she met Amber Heard at the Pineapple Express premiere in 2008 when Amber Heard was with Whitney, and you know, they kind of got introduced. And Whitney worked at the Art of Elysium as in 2014, and she was an art salon manager director. Whitney started working there in 2014, and she stopped working there in 2015. Jennifer Howell is actually paying her own legal fees from her own money, because we know that Amber Heard's lawyers are going to try to discredit her by saying that, you know, blah 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 blah, these witnesses, they get paid by Johnny Depp and so on and so forth. So Jennifer Howell, now we know that she paid for her own legal fees in this trial and also in the UK trial. There is a very interesting thing that she said about Amber Heard. She said that she received a check from Amber Heard for $250,000, but this was an anonymous donation made by Elon Musk. And she knew it was from Elon Musk, and she knew it came from Amber Heard because she received a letter in honor of Amber Heard saying that the donation was made in honor of Amber Heard. So I think I know where this is going. Amber Heard is trying to pay her silence off, if you get what I mean. From my point of view, I think this is what's happening. Jennifer Howell, she also stated that in 2020, she sent an email to Whitney Henriquez to ask her to just tell the truth. She was the reason why Jennifer sent the email to Whitney, it was because she was genuinely concerned for Whitney's well-being.
Oh, you previously testified that you were the CEO for Art of Elysium, is that correct?
That is correct.
And are you still currently in that position?
Yes, I am.
And how long have you been the CEO for Art of Elysium?
I am the founder of the organization, so we did our first workshop in August of 1997, filed the legal paperwork in February of 98 to set up a 501c3. So I guess since the beginning of the charity.
Ms. Howell, when did you first meet Amber Heard?
At the Pineapple Express premiere is where I met she and her sister Whitney.
Do you remember approximately what year that was?
I believe it was around 2008. I'm sure that could be pulled. It was the LA premiere. I think there was probably multiple premieres, but it was the Los Angeles premiere of Pineapple Express.
Was Ms. Heard there with Mr. Depp?
No, this was long before. I was a guest of James Franco, and Amber was in the movie. And so I met she and her sister at the, to be specific, at the after party of the premiere.
Did Ms. Henriquez end up working for Art of Elysium at some point?
Yes, she did.
What year did Ms. Henriquez begin working with Art of Elysium?
I believe it was in 2014. I don't have those documents right in front of me. I believe it was leading into the year Amber was receiving the award.
And what was Ms. Henriquez's position at Art of Elysium?
Art salon manager, director.
Does Ms. Henriquez still work for Art of Elysium?
No.
When did that end?
Oh, 2015, I believe.
Each time you saw Mr. Depp, did you ever see him doing any illicit, illegal drugs?
Never.
Did you ever see him consuming excessive amounts of alcohol?
Objection. Never.
Did you ever see Mr. Depp appear intoxicated?
No.
Did Ms. Heard ever show you photographs of depicting injuries on her face or body?
No.
Did Ms. Heard ever tell you that Mr. Depp was abusive towards her?
No.
Mr. Depp paying your legal fees, Ms. Howell, for this deposition and the testimony you've provided in the UK action?
He is not.
Who is?
Myself.
Do you feel any particular sense of loyalty towards Mr. Depp?
None at all.
Do you feel any sense of loyalty towards Ms. Heard?
None at all.
Ms. Howell, do you recognize this check as the check that the Art of Elysium received on behalf of Ms. Heard for a donation, an anonymous donation of $250,000?
Yes.
I believe you testified previously that you understood that the anonymous donor was Elon Musk. Is that true?
Yes.
If I could please have Exhibit 4 brought up. Do you recognize this document, Ms. Howell? And if you need to scroll through the 8 pages, feel free.
Yeah, I recognize that.
And what is this?
That is an email, I believe, I sent to Whitney.
Scrolling up to the first page of this attachment, who is Marcel
Paraso?
Sure, Paraso.
He is one of my oldest friends in Los Angeles who has served as a board member of the Art of Elysium and is one of my biggest confidants here in LA, kind of for the course of my career.
And going down to the 3rd page of this exhibit, this is an email, Ms. Howell, that you sent to Whitney Henriquez on or about Tuesday, July 28th, 2020 at 11:02 a.m.
It is.
This is a true and accurate copy of an email exchange that you sent to Ms. Henriquez?
Yes, I believe I'm the one who gave that. Yes, it is.
And then did you forward this email exchange and the attachments to Marcel Paraso?
Yeah, I asked him to keep it for me.
Why did you send this email and letter to Ms. Henriquez?
Because I've struggled very much with what to do in a situation that I love someone who I know is doing something very wrong, and I know that they're doing it because they're trying to protect their sister, and I'm trying to protect her, and I'm just trying to get her to wake up and do the right thing, which is tell the truth. It's the only thing that can help everybody involved in this case.
Ms. Howell, do you recall submitting a witness statement in the United Kingdom?
Yeah, they basically just called to verify the witness statement that was submitted previously.
And do you recognize this document to be the witness statement and the declaration that you submitted in the UK?
Yes, I recognize it.
And at the first page, do you see a date on this document?
January 13th, 2021.
Thank you. And is this document a true and accurate copy of the declaration that you submitted in the UK proceeding on or about January 13th, 2021?
Yes.
And are all the statements in your UK declaration accurate and true?
I mean, yes, I signed it, yes.
All right, let's pull up what I believe was Depp Exhibit 9. It's been marked as Depp Exhibit 9. So, Ms. Howell, earlier you were shown this document. Scrolling to the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Did Mr. Waldman assist you in drafting this email?
Absolutely not.
Did you speak with Mr. Waldman at all about drafting this email?
About writing an email? No. I did that on my own accord.
Did you speak with Mr. Waldman at all about contacting the ACLU?
I do not recall having a conversation with him about that.
And Ms. Howell, you testified earlier that you received a check from Fidelity Charitable in January of 2018. Is that correct?
I don't know if I said the date, but yes, I received an anonymous donation from that check that was submitted. Whatever it's on there, I just don't know the date off the top of my head.
And you testified that there was a letter sent along with that that said that it was in honor of Amber Heard?
Yes. Richard, I was guaranteed 20 minutes with him after being attacked for 3.5 hours by your side the last time. So I am going to stick by what I was told before entering this and what your side agreed to.
Why I was disappointed in that was because there was nothing mentioned about the conversation that Whitney had with Jennifer Howell. I'm not sure if there was any objection made, because when you have a witness on the position, the videos, they are edited, so you don't hear objections like you would in court. So I have no idea. If I would be to guess, there was probably an objection about hearsay, third party, Whitney Henriquez. I have no idea. I'm not sure, but I found it I found it disappointing not to hear anything about those instances of what Whitney said, because I know that she was, well, I'm figuring that she was brought in to discredit Whitney's testimony, and I'm not sure if she managed to do that with this deposition. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm hoping that the jury will kind of see what's happening here. I'm hoping that the jury will see the $250,000 donation coming from Elon Musk, because the way that I'm seeing this donation is as a payment to stay silent. So basically this was everything covered yesterday in court, and we will have another day of witnesses, and my assumption is that this is when Kate Moss will take the stand, but I'm not sure. We will have to wait and see. For now, thank you guys so much for watching. Please let me know what do you think about all this craziness in the comment section down below. Also, yeah, my light stopped working again. I have no idea what's happening. Anyway, if you are not a subscriber, please consider subscribing by hitting the button, and also make sure you turn your notification bell on so you are notified about any new videos that I upload on this channel. Also, please give this video a thumbs up. It really shows your support for the channel, and it really helps me with the exposure in terms of the YouTube platform. For now, oh yes, I do have a Patreon. If you are interested, the link is in the description below. It will also be on your screen right now. Over there on Patreon, we talk about everything that we can't talk about on YouTube, 18+ stuff, including crime scene photos, behind the scenes, shout outs to my members, and you know, all these kind of things, whatever comes to my mind. Again, thanks for watching, guys. Take care and stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.